Welcome, everybody, to the 12th episode of the Deadliest Warrior podcast. I'm your host today, Craig Taylor.
I'm your GSG 9 expert today, Lucas.
And I Wikipedia'd the SWAT. My name is Matt David.
Yes. First episode of season 2.
Yeah,
It's good to be back.
We're finally here. Oh, it's good to be back.
Yeah. I do like how I don't remember like any of these outcomes. So to me, like I don't like it's like watching an episode for the first time, which is nice.
That's interesting.
So
yeah, as you know, Craig, I have replaced any meaningful relationship or family birthday or loving memory with a parent with Deadliest Warrior information in my brain. So
yeah, I know it's not the same for you.
Right, yeah. But it is, I will say, I haven't seen like any of the season 2 stuff in a really long time.
Yeah.
So it is sort of like watching it a little new again.
Yeah.
You know, there's still little gems and surprises hidden in there
Yeah,
for me.
it's because you had the DVD always growing up, so we could go back and watch season 1 like over
Yes.
and over. Season 2, yeah, there's like the Jesse James one I remember, but the rest I'm just like blank memory. It's like
Yeah.
rewatching it almost for the first
It was
time.
always easier for me to just go back to the DVD, like you said, you know, and now that I'm doing this for you people, though, I will buy
yeah.
this
Yeah,
stuff.
Don't worry, I own all of season 2 on Amazon already.
Right.
So.
The shit was like $40. Yeah. So I just want to say we should be as abrupt as the show. Within the first seconds of this episode, some dude's head gets blown off by
Yes,
GSG 9.
Best intro ever.
GSG 9, the top secret paramilitary arm of the German police, known as the most lethal counter-terrorism squad in the world.
You're hooked from that for the rest of the season.
And it's like right after the narrators, you know, he's like, known as the most lethal counterterrorism squad in the world.
Yeah.
This guy gets out of the seat. It's the airplane one, right?
Yes.
He gets out of the seat. He's
Yeah.
blown off.
It's the airplane map from Rainbow Six Siege. So I was getting heavy Siege vibes from this. I think the creators of Rainbow Six Siege, I feel like they watched this episode of Deadliest Warrior.
I wonder about that level because they touch on it later in this episode. There's a famous like airplane, like counterterrorism operation that they did. I wonder if that was the inspiration for the level and why they put that. I assume that's why they put it in the show.
Could be. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it.
Hell yeah.
So I will say up front, these are some of the least different stats we'll ever see. They're just basically two white guys. So the SWAT is 5'11", 190 pounds, 60 pounds of gear, and a Kevlar vest and helmet. Whereas the GSG-9 is 6 feet, 200 pounds, also 60 pounds of gear, and a Kevlar and titanium helmet.
GSG-9 giving us some serious like Chad energy, you know.
Titanium, boys.
Yeah.
Titanium right there.
6 foot, 200 pounds, Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Yeah, compared to the
Got a German accent.
the beta
you know?
SWAT.
Where do they get these like measurements from? Because it's just, like
I'm
every guy.
convinced they mean nothing. Even the weapon stats, I don't think factor into anything.
It's like the Star Wars clones where they're all the exact same height and
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So, probably the most arbitrary stats we've gotten yet. So I guess I wanted to start out. We'll go with Matt first. Can you give us a brief history on the SWAT and what separates them from the GSG-9?
Yeah, so Deadliest Warrior sort of makes this claim that SWAT was formed in response to the August 1966 Charles Whitman clock tower shooting, where like a lone gunman was able to like barricade himself and outperform the local police, and they couldn't stop him. And while the fear of a lone gunman did influence the creation of the SWAT mainly got traction and funding in response to like the increase in riots of the 1960s. They were mainly implemented for riot control. And then after that, the SWAT got another boost in funding and like numbers when the war on drugs started. And then another boost in funding and numbers when, you know, after 9/11 in the war on terror. So they're typically comprised of officers who go through a rigorous training program, but because the SWAT are not constantly on duty, those officers typically have other jobs, like they'll do routine jobs and you know, other police work is what I mean.
yeah, they're usually like lawn. It's not like, you know, your school janitor and they're like, there's a hostage situation. He's like, oh shit, Let me get my stuff together.
Yeah. So most major urban centers have their own SWAT department. And just so we're clear, SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. The largest and widely regarded as the best SWAT, when you sort of dig through the research and opinions out there, is the LAPD.
Which that's who the experts are with, the LAPD.
Yeah. The experts are both LAPD guys. And I also saw that the U.S. Border Patrol and the FBI also have their own SWAT units for like high-risk missions. And just to touch on training, SWAT training typically takes upward of 19 weeks. They usually prefer candidates who have a 4-year college degree, but that's not required. What is required is that you have on-the-job experience in law enforcement. Candidates receive training in accident investigation, traffic control, firearms, emergency response, and patrol, as well as education in federal, state, and local laws. Only about 5% of all police and sheriff's office members become SWAT units. So,
Are there any chickens involved in that training?
I did not read about any chicken killing in the training.
Interesting. So Lucas, I want to open up the same question to you.
I have one for Matt real quick.
Okay.
SWAT, are they the same as, I'm confused, are they STARS as well? You know, Special Tactics and Rescue? It's a little Resident Evil joke for you out there.
No, I see.
Almost as successful as Matt's Halo jokes.
Yeah.
I was about to like hit the Chrome button and Google stars. I was like, yeah, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, it's Resident Evil. That's what the nemesis goes. Stars.
Yeah. And in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Jill Valentine always goes, I'm a member of STARS. She always says it like that.
Yeah, Jill's hot.
Anyway, so I want to ask you the same question, but specifically because they talk about how deadly the GSG-9 are. I remember, and I know this is not the best. I know this is not the best source. When I read in the Shonen Jump magazine when I bought at Walmart when I was 10, that up until that point in the GSG-9's entire history, they've only killed like 4 people, and they have to like account for every single bullet that they fire, which is almost unheard of compared to the SWAT.
Right, American police. Yeah.
So I mean, is Shonen Jump correct, or?
Well, you see, from my intricate studies that I started today, I have no idea if that's true.
Yeah, well, both of I know at least for SWAT, the amount of like casualties, whether it's civilian or like actual suspects, is very hard to find, and GSG-9 is very secretive.
Yeah, I imagine anytime you do police work in like an urban environment in like a city too, as soon as that, you know, this action goes in and, you know, it takes 7 minutes to do this operation, the amount of cleanup work and paperwork afterwards that gets filled out. And like, yeah, I'm sure they do count like the casings on the floor, you know, who was taken. I could see something like that being a part of the process.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give us some contrast into like SWAT training or GSG-9's training or whatever.
Yeah, the show actually does a really
or whatever.
Whatever. The show does a really good job, I think, this episode, giving a background on both where it's fairly accurate for once. So I did not take German. I don't speak German. I'm a little bit German, but
yeah,
there was a lot of big German words in this that I just didn't even write them down.
Brendan, do we got a assist?
I didn't even write them down.
Schönes Volken and Tschüss. I'll say Tschüss at the end.
There we go. There's some more German words. You know, Brendan got that one. So, so it's essentially German for Border Protection Group 9, and it's the German Police Tactical Unit of the German Federal Police. And they became active on September 26, 1972. Remember that date. They specialize in law enforcement and counterterrorism, and their headquarters is in St. Augustine. There's approximately 400 active members, which seemed really low to me. I mean, I guess that they're very specialized, but I thought there'd be more.
Maybe when they're not sent out on like drug raids all the time, you get less activity.
Right, yeah.
Maybe need less people. So
yeah, right.
So they cover this in the show too, but I'm going to go over it again. September 5th, 1972. The Palestinian terrorist movement, Black September, infiltrated the Summer Olympic Games in Munich, West Germany. Why is that big? It's the Olympics. The entire world's watching, pretty much. And this is like a major screw up, essentially, that they don't have, you know, the police can't handle this situation. The terrorist group attempted to kidnap 11 Israeli athletes and killed 2 in the Olympic Village. The German police realized they did not have any specialized training for counterterrorism operations and had underestimated the terrorists involved as they attempted to rescue the athletes.
What do we do?
They did not have any specialized tactical sniper teams at the time. The German army did, but the German constitution does not allow the use of German armed forces on German soil during peacetime, which is kind of one of those like loopholes where, they could, help out, but I guess they can't. The police rescue failed, and the operation led to the death of 1 policeman, 5 of the 8 kidnappers, and all of remaining 9 hostages. As a consequence of the mismanagement of that Olympic tragedy, the West German government created the GSG-9. And many German politicians originally opposed the formation of the GSG-9, fearing that it would rekindle memories of the Nazi Party. And even though they're like polar opposites, essentially. They've undergone a couple name changes throughout the years, but maintained the GSG-9 nickname. And the GSG-9 today is deployed in cases of hostage taking, kidnapping, terrorism, extortion, high-risk arrests in areas of serious and organized crime. And they're tackling, as of like a couple years ago, arrests in cybercrime now is under their jurisdiction. And at the SWAT World Challenge in 2005, the GSG-9 took 8 out of 8 events, beating 17 other teams, and then did it once again in 2006.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting thing. I've seen a lot of conversation about that, especially on the aftermath and in my research, is these SWAT Olympics. And the GSG-9 and the SWAT were pretty familiar with each other from those, like who won what. So I guess these guys get pretty competitive with that, but that was the thing I didn't know about.
So Craig, you might come up to me, knowing you might be, how do I join the GSG-9? Well, members of the German police services below the age of 34 and with at least 2 years of service can apply for the selection process. The candidates for the GSG-9 undergo 5 days of assessment in order to be accepted into the training cycle. Includes medical examinations, psychological, marksmanship training, yada, 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 the usual stuff. Only 10 to 15% of all these candidates pass, which is a really low passing rate. Then they are subjected, the ones who pass, to a 4.5-month training period, which is, of these like special counterterrorism groups, I guess, is one of the longer trainings in the world. So they kind of pride themselves on that. And that includes the basic and specialized training. Oh, I'm sorry. That is just the basic training. And then upon completion of this training, candidates undergo various training sections for their respective specialization, including parachute, maritime operation, advanced marksmanships, blah, 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 the rest of them. So upon completion of all of this, which is a really long time, they get to wear the GSG-9 badge on their uniform, and then all of their identities of anyone in the GSG-9 is classified. And then they mentioned right at the end of like the intro that Operation Fire Magic, where there was that airplane where they went in, and there was a 7-minute operation where they went in and killed all the terrorists that were holding this plane hostage on, I think it was on the runway. That was absolutely 100% legit. That exactly how the show presents it for once. They got some facts right there.
Nice. Just picture GSG-9. So like when you go into the training, like your family's like, well, what have you been up to the past few years? And you have to like tell them that you failed. You know, like, so are you in? Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to see you. Classified. Oh, right. Welcome home. Classified.
Yeah.
Your name is gone.
You can't like tell everybody on Facebook and stuff. You know?
Yeah, just like you get a GSG-9, you update your Facebook job to IKEA. Although I think that's like, isn't that Switzerland or something? That's not Germany.
Yeah, that's Scandinavia, but I'm sure they have IKEAs in Germany.
It's German,
got 'em here.
German adjacent. Yeah. So moving on to experts. So I'm actually going to do a little bit of a reverse because I don't have as much on the GSG-9 experts as I do the SWAT. The SWAT, we're going to get into some shit. But starting off with the GSG-9, Michael Nagel, I found nothing. That's all my notes is nothing. Because it was Deadliest Warrior Syndrome.
I didn't research any of the GSG-9.
I got like 1 or 2 just small notes. That he is an actor, producer known for Project Purgatory and CSI Crime Scene Investigation. There was a man named Michael Nagel who was Sergeant Major of the German Armed Forces, but looked nothing like this guy at all. So I don't know if this actor was supposed to be like, he's playing that guy on the show. Is my best guess, because that was not the same guy.
That's interesting, because it said he served in the German Armed Forces.
You think they wouldn't make that up?
He very much came off to me in this episode as like an actor, and that's only because I noticed like he was very handsome, he was very witty, like he's very witty, and he's got like that killer smile, and I was like, this guy looks like he is like an actor or like a model or something that they brought in, and he might have served in the German military.
I don't know if either of these guys are German. Also, they could be, but they have perfect American accents too. Like they both speak like perfect English.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah,
So
pretty
you would
close
think if
to
they were
perfect
like
English, yeah.
you know, born in Germany and were in the, you would think they would have, you know, some like an accent.
So
or
maybe
something.
he's just a naturally gifted performer, but I noticed like with Michael Nagel, like the lines he would say and like just certain witticisms, he kind of came off as like, well, it seems like he is a performer for a living. You know, like he's very comfortable in front of the camera. Whereas
like, oh, it's a German weapon held by a German.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I actually sort
and
of.
then he's got like the best smile, man. He smiles and he's like, ding.
Well, I actually had the opposite sort of take where I was like, maybe because there's so little on this guy, he has to be GSG 9 because he's like wiped from the record. So that might be why there was almost nothing.
That is an interesting idea because we just talked about you're not allowed to like say if you are.
Yeah.
So.
The only source that I pulled the CSI and stuff that was on, I found him on IMDb. Just pulled him up on the Deadliest Warrior episode and then clicked on him and then it listed like CSI and stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, he could be a consultant on that show. He could be legit. I mean, who knows?
My best guess is like he served in the military, probably is German, and now, excuse me, is an American who works in like, you know, the movie industry or the TV industry or something like that.
Right. Now moving on to Damien Puckler. He is billed as a GSG 9 combat instructor and martial arts champion. He is an actor. He was in the TV show Grimm, which I vaguely remember.
Yeah.
He is one of the few masters of the ancient deadly pressure point fighting system, the Devil Hands of Dim Mak, which is a Naruto-esque deadly.
I'm gonna say any of that like 7 pressure points or whatever, guys. I'm just gonna tell you all that's fake. If some guy's trying to sell that to you, that's not legit.
That's 7.
Say that to my Vulcan neck pinch.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, this was clearly written by him, like the ancient martial arts mastery. So, because it's like mimic the same language, I guarantee copy and pasted one day. On,
I
like,
thought
all this stuff.
that is interesting to hear. So I didn't research GSG 9 experts at all, but hearing that Damien is just an actor that's like playing a role in this, obviously not surprising for the show, but I thought was a little surprising because when he talks about the GSG 9, the pronouns he always uses is we. He's always saying, "Yeah, we do this."
It comes off like
this is how we do it. Yeah, it comes off like he's part of the program. I guess he's just referring to his team on Deadliest Warrior, but yeah, that's what I noticed. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, you got paid.
Right.
Moving on to
he's not like super obnoxious and he doesn't say anything terrible.
He brings up some good points too. Like he counters what a lot of the experts are saying, and I think that I liked him on the episode.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen any of season 1, we cover in all of our season 1 episodes, the vast majority of experts that are on Deadliest Warrior are just stunt actors. So it's wouldn't be shocking if these two guys are just like stunt actors that they hire.
He was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine also.
There you go.
So there's something people can recognize.
Hey, get that check, Damien.
Yeah. Moving on to SWAT. So both these guys are legit, and I've seen them in police reports. Which is not good. So John Dara is billed as a 9-year SWAT vet. I didn't find much on him. A lot of pretty much what's could be ascribed to John can be ascribed to Steve to an extent. Moving on to Steve Gordon. So we have a lot of experts that we talk about where, they have something regrettable in their past that they've done post Deadliest Warrior. Like you have Zero Kazama being on the run.
Yeah, the bounty hunters chasing him. We just made that up, but I say that now like it's a fact.
Yeah.
Like I tell people that like, Dog the bounty hunter's chasing him down.
The guy from Silent Library. Yeah. And then you have like Matt Anderson being a douche, Scotty Collins losing all his money, which is unconfirmed. But so you have people that do something regrettable post Deadliest Warrior. Steve Gordon might be our worst expert yet because he's actively making the world a much worse place.
Oh man.
So he's billed as a Metro SWAT operator, which I just assume that means he operates in the city. Metro.
I found that he's an LAPD guy.
Well, that's his bill on the show.
Okay.
So he is now the director of the LA Police Protective League, which is a regressive, corrupt police union in LA. I did find an interesting article talking about specifically, like, I guess all police unions, but specifically this one, where they mention him as the director, and I'll link that in the description. My first interaction with him that I saw in my research, it was a TV news interview where there's a MRSA outbreak, and I guess that, you know, they're talking about the cause of it, and Steve Gordon says, oh, it's all this homeless everywhere, just pissing and shitting all over the place.
Steve Gordon of the Protective League confirms that it was a homeless transient that came into contact at the station, and he was blunt when asked about the problems officers face with the homeless.
Our officers are being put in very hazardous conditions with the addiction to drugs, the homeless encampments, the feces, the needles, everything throughout these encampments. There's only one thing that these cameras can't catch, and that is the smell and the vile conditions in which some of these addicted people live in.
And he's
Nice.
And then they get a doctor from like not UCLA, what's the other California college?
Oh, like
USC.
USC.
They get a USC
yeah.
like doctor, and he's like, that's not true.
You wouldn't be able to say that it came from one person or another. It's everywhere around us.
So don't blame the homeless here.
No.
Dr. Brad Spellberg, Chief Medical Officer, County USC. Is this an alarming situation?
No. MRSA has been in communities for 20 years. It's affected and infected hundreds of thousands of people across the last 20 years just in the United States.
And then Steve Gordon comes back at the end. He says that he wanted the entire LAPD headquarters sanitized and pamphlets handed out to officers to learn how to protect them, which I don't know about you. I think that police unions advocating for the health and safety of officers like that is a little bit of medical tyranny, but that's neither here nor there. And then moving on beyond that, so his police union, like a lot of police unions, is responsible for the suppression of body camera footage. He was directly quoted in an article saying something like, well, whenever people ask why the body camera wasn't on for an officer in an encounter, I always say, he's so hopped up, you're lucky you even put the car in park. Which, like, that's not how that works, Steve. And they, you know, obviously these unions, including the one he directs, a lot of these officers are reviewed on a board of other officers. They're told ahead of time if they have a complaint against them so they can get their story straight. So yeah, a lot of really bad stuff from Steve.
Can I read my quick little notes, what I have on him?
Yeah.
I have here, he hates orphans. He hates puppies.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, so one other little thing on him. So all police departments, I think, do this whenever they press release like an incident. They're always use phrases like an officer involved shooting, or like a man found dead after injuring a SWAT officer, almost to suggest like, did he die from cancer? Did he die from...
Right, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, well, 30 SWAT officers fired in on him. We just found him dead. I don't know what happened there. And it's specifically in that event that I saw, cited both Steve Gordon and John Dara. So like they work together. Which is
I
interesting.
imagine they probably work together. We're just SWAT guys that got recruited for the show, and
it's in LA, I imagine.
Yeah, it feels like Dr. Dorian knew both of them.
Probably.
Like the way he kept talking about like LAPD and like those guys, it was
well,
like
he said he worked in an LA trauma center.
Yeah.
So knew their work firsthand or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like very not good.
Well, he's seen like what happens whenever people like, you know, the SWAT has to take people out.
That's what's sort of funny about, inherently strange about this episode is that, so we've talked before about like warriors, you know, what is a warrior? And obviously SWAT and GSG 9, I think, can be classified as warriors, but it is weird because they're both cops and they both keep saying, there's this weird like irony going on the whole episode where it's like, they both keep saying how badly, like, hey, if the criminal comes home alive, if we come home alive, like, that's a good day. Like, as long as nobody gets hurt. And then they cut to footage of, like, them blowing people's kneecaps out.
Yeah. The success for us is where the bad guy doesn't get hurt, none of us get hurt, no citizens get hurt, and everybody goes home the same way they came.
The elite special forces of U.S. law enforcement who take on the country's most dangerous police missions.
That's what I was going to say.
Blowing people's heads
and that's,
off.
To be fair, it's not Steve's fault. He didn't edit the
well,
episode.
I'm not even attacking Steve. I'm saying it's a weird thing on the show where there's another really good example of this in season 2 that we'll get to when we get to. But this one is very much like them trying to play a certain narrative, but then they can't get over the fact that this is a Spike TV show, so every 2 seconds they got to show like someone's head getting imploded. Yeah, so like every piece of footage they show, people are like getting their heads blown clean off. There's a lot of like weird joint hits in this one. There's one where a cop shoots a guy in a kneecap and then blows his head off, and I was like, God, this is so like so violent, and it only bothered me because it was like then it would cut to them talking, and it's like, well, we just want to make sure that we take the guy in one piece, and it's like, okay,
Yeah. I could see both of this too. I think you just nailed it on the head.
But then we're gonna test 3 lethal weapons in this episode.
I think you nailed it. That it's like, because it's Spike TV, they want to show people getting blown up and their head getting taken off. And it is like a romanticized version. Kind of like when you think of special forces, you think of them going in behind the lines, blue, 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 and these guys are like counter-terrorists by trade. So, you think of like, we have 7 minutes to evacuate the hostages. But most stuff they probably, like, that SWAT actually responds to, it's probably a lot more minor stuff.
Yeah,
and like ideally, a good guy in the SWAT would want everyone to go home safe. So I can see like what they're saying.
Yeah, I agree that should be the role of like police. It was just interesting because this is the other modern warriors we get on here are usually like criminals, terrorists, or like special forces operators that directly deal in like war zones.
Their goal is like death.
And yeah, exactly. Like, and so to see them getting into conflicts where they're fighting like heavily armed foes is sort of like, okay, but there are certain operations that have happened in the history of the SWAT and then in the GSG 9, like you said, but most of the stuff the SWAT has to deal with is very messy and very like dependent on the situation. So it was just weird to see them constantly doing like breaking into like a drug den and then murdering everybody in there. Like, oh, these are all you're supposed to assume like, oh, these are all cartel guys or whatever.
You can tell by their skin.
Yeah, like they're bad guys and they're not gonna give up, so we gotta murder them all or whatever.
I think it also points to the time which the show came out to, where obviously this is like 10 years from now, where police are examined a lot more closely by more people. So like when I was a kid, like I think I got the impression that the SWAT were like an extension of like the military.
Yeah,
I guess that's kind of what they're presented.
Because post 9/11, they're very militarized. Like they have all the same equipment as the military for the most part. Equipment meaning like access to body armor, training, and weapon, like small arms weapons. The military obviously has a little bit more sophisticated stuff, and like all their stuff is designed to be lethal, right?
My only notion of them, like from whenever I was a kid, is there's a bad guy on top of like a big building, and he has like someone. He's like, I want $1 million or this person dies. And then there's like the SWAT guy with the sniper, like on the opposite rooftop, and they're like, take the shot, take the shot.
Now it's like the SWAT are just known for breaking into Ethan Klein's house. When, like a racist commenter doxes him or something,
or like the totally wrong house.
Right,
happens a lot.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, definitely a closer examination on the SWAT. I don't think we'll touch too much more on that until maybe the end, and we'll keep it play it straight for probably the rest of the episode.
Yeah. I think I've said my piece. I just wanted to remark that it was a little weird having like law enforcement on a show that features people like Genghis Khan and
called Deadliest Warrior.
Yeah, right. And like even the Spartan hoplites, where it's like this whole person's life was just, they're a warrior because they kill and that's their goal. And it was kind of weird seeing the juxtaposition they tried to do in this episode, where it's like, yeah, they kill people, but they don't want to. It's
I had my little piece. I was gonna
spare me, you know.
I had my piece. I was gonna put like closer to the end about like. Well, I'll cover it later too.
Yeah.
Like, how I don't think this is a very good like.
It's a weird matchup.
Yeah. And what's I think funny is I wonder if this is what caused Max to quit, because I know like Max, if you don't follow him on Twitter, is like super left leaning and on the Aftermath looks like a hippie. Like,
yeah, right.
And so I feel like this is a show that he would not do in 2021, like under any circumstances. But to be fair, I don't think the show would be made in 2021 with like the sensibilities that there are right now.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, anyway.
Until we win the lottery and make it.
Yes. Yeah.
Until we take over. Yeah.
All right. I'm ready to get into it if you're ready, Craig.
Yeah. So starting off at mid-range, we have 2 assault rifles, starting with the PSD, range of 400 yards, 6.8 millimeter, 30 round mag, and 900 rounds per minute is the fire rate. What is this gun similar to? Because it looks like so many different video game guns that I've used.
Yeah, so the PSD is it's 80% compatible to like an M4 or AR-15. The only difference comes in that your standard M4 AR-15 fires a 5.56 round, whereas this fires a 6.8 millimeter cartridge. I did a little bit of research on it. So the PSD is very much a product of its time. There was a distinct period I remember during like maybe 2008 to like 2012 where there was a whole lot of press to replace the 5.56 with the 6.8. And I remember it because I played a ton of Tom Clancy video games, and the 6.8 is in every single Tom Clancy video game. Like in End War, I remember it was like the U.S. soldiers have a SCAR that fires the 6.8. You go into Rainbow Six Vegas 2, and it's like, oh, where's the M4? It's the M468. And I'm like, I was thinking about just how that was like and I remember seeing a bunch of History Channel and Military Channel shows on at the time that were like, the 5.56 is too wimpy, but the 7.62 is too big. The 6.8 is going to square that circle, you know, and they do like an hour-long episode about how this is the greatest rifle cartridge ever made, and then a few years later you hear nothing about the 6.8, and it's just sort of you can buy one, but it's just sort of a niche thing. Like,
good luck finding any like ammunition for it
anymore.
The
5.56 is still the standard military cartridge, and I'm just going to tell you all right now, I think it's cool that they brought on something unique for the episode, but the vast majority of police departments and SWAT units if they're using an assault rifle, are using an AR-15, or if they have access to like a full auto M4 variant,
like the Colt Commando with like the short barrel.
Yeah, they're using some sort of AR-15 style rifle in a 5.56 caliber. I found very little about like who even the 6.8 is just kind of a niche thing.
Yeah, they did that same thing with handgun rounds where they said the 9 wasn't good enough and the 45 was too big, so they made like the 40 Smith & Wesson.
Right.
And everyone, like every police department's going to be the 40, and then it just died.
Yeah,
and then no one cared about it anymore.
The 6.8 is definitely the 40 cal of assault rifles, where it was like, well, here's something in between, and it's like it just never caught on really. So I laughed when I saw this rifle pop up because I was like, this is so like 2010s, late 2000s era like military fiction where it's like in the future everybody's using the 6.8 round. And I'm like, I'm in the future, bitch, and it ain't here.
Well, they talk about the 6.8, the assault rifle specifically in the Aftermath, and I'll save it for then because they have someone brings up an interesting point about it.
Yeah.
So, and only other note I have is when they're presenting the PSD, Max is standing there in a suit jacket, and he looks really funny because he's just like this like nerd sitting in the desert with the jacket. So that's kind of funny.
Max, we love you. Come on the pod.
Oh, dude, yeah. I think Max might be our number one person we want to get.
Now that your Lion video, Observing Lions on Zoo Tycoon video has cleared 9,000 views.
9.3.
Maybe now we can DM Max and say, hey, we're a YouTube channel with over 9,000 views.
Yeah. If you want to know the origins of our most popular video, stick around for the Pretty Good Podcast.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it on there.
Yeah. So moving on to the HK G36. Stats are a range of 650 yards, an ammo of 5.56, 30-round mag, and 750 rounds per minute. They do make a big deal about how light the gun is and how maneuverable it is, but they don't tell you the weight, which makes me think that these stats have no bearing on the actual.
It's because like a PSD is mostly made of metal, and a G36 has a lot more polymer on it, so it's supposed to be lighter weight.
Let me tell you, if they're like half a pound or a pound difference, you're really not going to feel that in like the heat of the moment.
Not according to Jeff.
Yeah.
He's like, you feel it immediately.
Well, Jeff picks it up and he goes, oh yeah, this is so light, but his voice cracks really hard. He goes, oh yeah, this is so light.
Oh, it's extremely light. That's beautiful. Just that's the first thing you notice is just like boom.
I think he is sick this entire episode.
I noticed
his voice is off the entire time.
I noticed Jeff's voice is very hoarse in this one.
So let's review the numbers then. 3 shots to take him down in 17.35 seconds. I think the SWAT team's gonna have their work cut out for them.
Yeah. He's like 3, 2.
He either went to a concert the night before or he's like got a cold. Or something.
Yeah, he's like He's like struggling.
Here we go. I got you boys with the power of Google. Gosh darn it, give me the weight. So G36, the weight. Oh no. Okay, here it is. So the G36C, which is what they're using, the variant they're using,
compact,
clocks in at 6.2 pounds. And then
I bet it's like 7.
The PSD clocks in at like 6.15 pounds. It's like the same weight.
Is that fully loaded?
Granted, this is me finding Google results in like 2 seconds, but
confirmed.
Yeah. I guess the 6.8 would probably be bigger in weight down.
They don't even
that ammo.
The bigger ammo could add more weight once it's fully loaded. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I confirmed online just in case anyone cares. They do in fact use this weapon. No shocker there. Features the folding stock, lightweight. It's so lightweight synthetic material that they constantly harp on. It was designed in the early 1990s as a replacement for the G3, which was featured in the Back for Blood episode, as that was too heavy. And it's been in service since '97, and there is a butt ton of configurations for it. And
a metric butt ton. It's European, so
the effective firing range between 500 and 800 meters, and any of these guys are not going to be using it to that distance. But in 2012, there is a lot of G36 people, like fanboys, but it was found to suffer from severe accuracy problems when the weapon overheated, and this has led them to start searching for a replacement. Get ready for this.
Yeah.
This replacement weapon is called the HK 416A8, and it will replace it in 2022.
That's what I read. Basically, the HK 416 is, if you don't know, is replacing like every assault rifle in the world, pretty much. And it's very reminiscent. An HK 416 is very reminiscent to a PSD, actually. So,
which is like a new HK assault rifle just dropped.
Yo, gotta go to the drop.
I had read that too, Lucas. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I love that name though. It's like 20 syllables.
I want to give a fun fact. When I was vacationing in Tennessee, I went to Bud's gun shop, and I got to shoot a G36 on full auto. So that was just a fun little story.
Was it light? Did it like blow away in the wind while you were trying to shoot?
I picked it up and I was like, whoa, this is light.
Or this is light.
This is light.
Poor guy. Yeah, you got to credit a guy who shows up to production sick and still does his thing.
We're moving on the test.
Yeah.
All right.
Wish I knew what that was like.
Probably I'm just going to say, in my opinion, one of my favorite Deadliest Warrior tests in the show, probably. I thought it was pretty cool, even though it shows you absolutely nothing scientific or about either of these rifles. I thought it was just fun. Like they built a little kill house exercise. So.
I have a bone to pick with this. I'm gonna let Craig like tell us about the test first, but I actually have a bone to pick with
Admiral Bone to pick over.
Yeah. Well, so there's a YouTube video that we found talking about Deadliest Warrior, and I'll put a little card in about it where he brought this up, how there's a hilarious dichotomy between the SWAT and GSG-9 tests. The GSG-9, you know, they have like hostages and stuff in there, and like it's like, get out of the way. Versus the SWAT, take the hostages and just like throw them to the ground.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll put in like side-by-side footage to like, get down.
Can we get like Randy Orton doing an RKO out of nowhere on the hostage?
I'll see if I can edit that.
Yeah, so
good luck editing
the
that.
test is essentially like the two teams go in, and there's some mannequins that are hostiles that have like little airsoft guns slung around them, and then there's some mannequins that are hostages, and so it's like kill the hostiles, don't kill the hostages, and see who can get it in the fastest time. And so they'll like throw a flashbang into a room and then come in and shoot or whatever.
Yeah, just room clearing exercise essentially.
I think they did upgrade the reactive targets though, because I think on season 1 when they had the Macy's dummies, like they were just hollow, whereas these are filled with blood.
Yeah, in Green Beret Spetsnaz, they almost have an exact replica of one of the shots where it goes like through the face and out the back, and you can see there's no blood or anything. And so in this one, they made sure to tone that up.
Hey,
so
a little showmanship.
I love it. I love it. Brendan and I were rewatching it just before this recording, and they shoot the PSD at the end, and the last shot that hits the dummy in the head, and the head just explodes. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. So they do mention that they would use, I think, the assault rifle in an underwater dive scenario or something. They mentioned underwater diving for the SWAT.
They say underwater diving is one of the specialties you can go into in SWAT.
There's the evil guy with the mustache underwater. If I don't get $1 million, I'm gonna shoot this guy, and they're like swimming under.
I just picture like an evil manatee.
An evil manatee, yeah. They're like, get him.
It's like, word on the streets, this manatee's got
fuck are you, whale?
Yeah, he's got a ton of coke down there in that ocean. And they go down there, they're like, freeze.
Papa manatee, we're bringing you in. You'll never take me alive, coppers. No, Johnny, don't do it.
Yeah. So people specialize in that. Like, I'm gonna get a paycheck. I'm gonna get union benefits. I'm not gonna do shit.
Swim around, yeah.
Until like Russia plants a bunch of like sea mines all over LA, and they're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So
I'm sick, guys. I can't come into this.
The flexibility of these guns is obviously important. Are they measuring it in any way, do you guys think, or?
What do you mean?
They just take the time for these tests.
Yeah, I guess that is a way.
Actually,
SWAT finishes in 1:20. GSG-9 finishes in 1:27. They say so. Like, pretty even on how fast they clear the course.
That's where my bone is to pick. Those times are fake.
Yeah, they definitely are fake because it's so heavily edited.
Yeah, that's my bone to pick. It looks like they do a really good job editing this, where it looks like a fluid room clearing exercise. Yeah. But because these guys and firearms safety, these aren't like, they're not in a real like training setting. They obviously have them go room to room. Then they do a hard like cut, pause the set, then they have them like aim at the dummies, and then they do like action.
Yeah, and
so it's not a real time.
I definitely thought, knowing what we know about the show now, I was paying extra attention to even see if it was our experts even in like the costumes. I figured the two SWAT guys, it would be them, because I'm like, they're letting these guys shoot the guns because these guys are actually like police officers. But like the German guys I didn't know anything about, so I was paying close attention, and yeah, I think they just slow it down. And if you notice, only one guy is shooting.
Yeah.
One guy takes out all the targets. The second guy has a gun, but he doesn't shoot it at all. And
I'm pretty sure blanks too.
I'm pretty sure that guy's. That's interesting. I didn't notice that, but I think the other guy probably just has an unloaded gun because they didn't want one of them accidentally shooting the other. So
hold on, Sonny.
Yeah. It's a very they do a really good job editing it though. Like, if you just watch it like the first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, that's a nice like room clearing exercise. They actually went through and did it. Then I went back and I was like, wait a minute. They stop they definitely like cut this and edited it.
Yeah,
like, a
they
bunch.
didn't want it to be dangerous. They didn't want anybody
which is fair
shooting
for a
another
show.
guy in the back and for the sake of Deadliest Warrior, you know. So.
You know, but it looks really good on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun test. At least.
I want to shoot a blood-filled mannequin. I think
Yeah.
it would be fun. Hey, 100 subscriber special. Look at a blood-filled mannequin
from Macy's. Yeah, so Edge is going to go to the PSD. I don't really agree with this because Damien brings up the point, like the round size, because they're like, oh, well, the round size is going to play a factor. Whereas, like, I think the round size for these two, like, trained forces is the difference between, like, a closed casket and open casket funeral for whatever they're shooting. So, like, they're going to get the job done, but do you really need it to be more explosive?
Yeah, I mean, there's the 5.56 does a heavy number if you get shot in the face. I mean, there's a pretty nasty term that the special forces guys use called canoeing. That like if you shoot a human in a certain spot with a 5.56, it just
no reflex kills.
Yeah, it just completely opens the cavity of the head, and so that the 6.8 does that to a mannequin in this. But I was thinking about those stories, and I was like, a 5.56 can do that to a human body, and I guess as far as the Edge goes, I will agree because they have to give the Edge based on something, and giving it to the higher caliber makes more sense than a lot of other stuff they've used to justify the Edge. Yeah. I just included in here that, you know, it's a larger caliber round, but most SWAT units are not going to have like a PSD. It's such a unique thing that they brought on for the show to look cool. And I don't know, when you're getting shot from 5 feet away in the chest, I don't know, like I legitimately don't know like how much is the stopping power really making a difference at that point.
Want to find out?
10,000 subscriber special.
Hey, Deadliest Warrior can do a live target, so can we?
Right? Yeah, we're gonna shoot Lucas with a taser.
Yeah,
I have been tasered before in real life.
That's actually one of my questions.
Save that for the taser section.
My little piece on this. I mean they should call this one even in my opinion, but if they did that every single time, I guess it would make the show boring. So they just picked one. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
In real life, I'm not a huge fan. This is just like a little nitpick thing for me. I'm not a huge fan of like the big carry handle they have on the
G36.
Yeah, and it's like one of the only guns except like the failed XM8 that also had that. I don't like the look.
That's another Tom Clancy favorite. The XM8 is in every single Tom Clancy game.
But yeah, I mean, this should be an equal test, but they just picked someone to, you know.
They got to give it to somebody. So
yeah.
Well, they also could tie it.
Well, they could tie it, but important to note when they test the AR against the AK-47, even though those are different rounds, that round never gets brought up.
Yeah.
So.
On a side note,
it does in season 3.
My real world opinion is has no merit and is shit. So
there we go.
That is you will.
Yeah. So then we get to the chicken story.
Oh,
yeah.
And this always stuck with me as a kid. I remember is like, oh, GSG 9 are the people that kill their chickens. So did you find anything about the chickens, Lucas?
I scoured the internet, even the dark web, and I did not.
You think it's fake?
I remember this story from the first time I watched the episode, and I always thought it was true. I found a lot of people talking about it on like Reddit and stuff, but I found like nothing confirming it or denying it. So, but in my opinion, it might be like a hoax because shouldn't they be focused on like real training instead of like raising this chicken?
Taking care of it's like it's meant to desensitize you to violence or something.
Yeah. Well, there was always a rumor with the Navy SEALs that they have to raise a puppy and kill a puppy. It was always one of those like fake hoaxes too. And
it's literally from, have you ever seen that movie Kingsman? That's one of the things they have to do is they all pick a dog and then they raise the dog for like a period of time and then they have to shoot it. But in the movie, the trick is that if you shoot it, you're disqualified. The guy who comes all that way and refuses to kill the dog has the right heart to be a Kingsman agent. So
we love experimenting on dogs.
I thought that movie was more interesting than the actual chicken story.
Yeah, I mean, didn't find anything. I highly doubt it's true because it seems like a waste of time. Honestly, if you're in like this like hardcore scenario like that, I don't think you'd really have any trouble. Just like it's a chicken. People like farmers kill chickens for food, and you know it's. I don't know. It just seems a little hoaxy to me.
Yeah.
Conspiracy.
When you're a kid, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, I remember being a kid,
it does stick with you. It's a narrative that sticks with you.
Eating your chicken nuggets, like, can't believe they kill a chicken.
Pass the KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the double burger with extra bacon, please.
Yeah.
Is that 11 herbs and spices?
Dude, that's fucked up that they killed that chicken.
So moving on to the HK PSG-1.
So the PSG-1 it's another German word, but it's essentially translated to Precision Shooting Rifle 1. And the show says we covered that it's to blow a hole in a man's head from a mile away. Yeah. Not quite. So it's been in service since 1972 to present. It was designed in 1968. Just what was actually interesting, the exact same Summer Olympics disaster is the reason this rifle was created, because they said that they didn't have that effective sniper squad. So right around the same time the GSG-9 was created, so was this rifle, which is why they use it. And then the sniper system uses the Hensoldt ZF 6x42 PSG-1 telescopic sight with illuminated reticle.
So is it true, like what Damien said, that we went to Heckler and Koch and said we need a sniper rifle, and they designed the PSG-1 specifically for the GSG-9?
Yeah, the H&K has, it seems like, a lot of German like military and police contracts. So I mean, it makes sense that they went to them, and I mean they're a very like respected company.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the Remington 700 stats are 750 yards, so a good bit longer. 308 round. 4-round mag and bolt action.
Well, anytime they put an American gun, they like to do like the calibers or whatever. But these guns fire the same. These rifles fire the same round.
They try to like trick people where they do one is 7.62 by 51.
Yeah,
and
one's
one is
308.
It's the same round.
They're the same. They're the same round. The Remington 700 is sort of the opposite of the PSG-1 in that one is like very advanced and sort of looks like a space age gun almost, and the Remington 700 couldn't be like more simple. It is, I will say, it was the most popular hunting rifle in America for a really long time. I think only in recent years the AR-15 started outselling it, but it's very popular, very prevalent in the United States, and through my research, SWAT teams do use it. Some SWAT teams actually have access to the military variant, which is the M24, which we already saw in Green Beret Spetsnaz. It's outstandingly accurate, and it's a powerful round. So, yeah, I mean, we can get into the test to see.
Shout out hunting rifle from Fallout.
Yes,
that's why I recognize it. So the test, I mean, I don't have much to say about it. Do you guys have anything to add?
Yeah,
I'll say it's an interesting test because they add that angled glass.
Do you want to say like what the test is, just for the audience to remind them?
Yeah, basically they shoot at a ballistic gel head like through glass.
And there's a hostage next to it.
It looks like roughly 50 yards that they're shooting from, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah, I would bet you it's 80 because that seems to be the consistent max we get when they're doing sniper tests. When they did the G3 versus Dragunov, when they did M24 versus Dragunov, they did like an 80-yard test. So I would bet you that that's what this target's at.
Do you like the Dragunov?
Yeah, I like the Dragunov.
You like when I'm dragging all these nuts on your face?
Almost. Yeah. So, I don't know. The GSG-9 shoot the ballistic gel's right eyeball. It actually looks like they hit it a little bit lower in the jaw, and it like blows like some of the face off. And then the eyeball just falls out.
Yeah, just the nature of those gels, they're going to like expand way more than like a human body would.
Whereas the SWAT hit it in the left eyeball, and it's like coming right on. Rather than kind of skimming on the side, it's coming right on, and so you get like this really impressive, it's really neat looking, like
looks like Squidward for a second.
Yeah, like his head expands and it turns all red, and it looks like a way more savage wound than the PSG's round, but they're the same bullet, so
yeah,
they do the same damage.
Yeah, they shoot through the angled glass, which initially I thought I'd say like a minute ago is interesting, but they're kind of close enough to the window that anglage is it a word? that angle wouldn't really affect too much. I mean, sometimes with glass you can get that effect, like when you stick your hand underwater and it looks like your arm's actually over here slightly. But
yeah. Well, they both hit. They were told to hit between the eyes. One hits one eyeball, the other hits the other eyeball, and
yeah, the GSG-9 hit it on the safe side, away from the hostage.
Right. That was the most like in the moment made up thing I've ever seen. Like where the German guy's like, well, you know, safer side or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Well,
sure.
Jeff starts bitching then too, and he's like, you know, bringing out like a microscope with a little thing. He's like, "Whoa, he hit a centimeter away, farther than the other."
Dorian's like, "We're talking fractions of an inch here, but you know, the one was a little closer than the other." And it's like, God, fuck off. They hit him in the eyeballs, like.
Yeah, they both did like perfect shots. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give the edge to the PSG.
Yeah.
Because the shot was slightly closer.
I do want to know, this is all part of, they say, they keep using this throughout the episode. They keep saying German precision. Did you notice that? And and Mike Nagel even says, he's like, German gun in the hands of a German, you're going to get a precise outcome. And I was just like, what? We've talked about this before, where it's like that kind of stereotyping they like to do on Deadliest Warrior, where they do like positive stereotyping. Like all the Asian warriors are always described as like, they're small, but like they're fast and they're disciplined and they got technique. Whereas, you know, and the Viking is just a big, dumb brute. Yeah. And in this one, you get a lot of the German precision and German engineering. And at the end, Max says something about the SWAT that we'll get to also, that I think goes along like, it's like an American stereotype. Yeah. But
see, I agree with the edge on this one with the PSG, but not because he was half a centimeter closer. They don't really address that much in the episode that it is a semi-automatic.
Yeah.
And which was just, in my opinion, why it would just get the edge. I guess if you had a follow-up shot, a semi-automatic's naturally going to be quicker.
Yeah, it's magazine fed. You can have a 5-round or a 10-round magazine.
They even make up to a 20, I think I saw, which
the Remington 700, you load one bullet at a time. And on here, they're listing this particular one as a 4-round internal magazine. So like having 10 rounds that you can fire semi-auto and then quick change into another 10 rounds is a big advantage over having to cock back each shot. Where the 700 might have an edge is if it is a more precise gun, which I actually don't know for sure. I didn't research what the minute of angle is on these rifles.
I looked up like the accuracy stats for both and reliability, and they were pretty much like null and void. Like,
well, then I think especially at the distance that's happening on Deadliest Warrior, which we can only assume, like Craig has said, you got to go with what they show you or you'll go crazy. We have to assume it's at 80 yards. And at 80 yards, I'd rather have something that is semi-auto, magazine fed versus a bolt gun.
Yeah, just like in the actual scenario of the police too, you know, if for some reason they, you know, there is multi-targets or, you know, people are human. If you miss that first shot, your follow-up shot is going to be, you know, instead of having to come back out and rack a bolt and then go back in, you're right there. You know, you can get that second shot.
The quicker. 700 obviously gets the job done for the operations the police need to do.
It's usually one and done.
In a 5-on the Deadliest Warrior, if the SWAT are fighting 5 GSG-9 guys, like something within a certain distance, like it's not really a sniper operation, and you'd rather have something that can fire more rounds quicker.
Yeah, and higher capacity. So I agree with the edge.
Yeah,
but
I do
agree
too.
For a completely different reason than the show states.
Yep.
Yeah. So going over to special weapons / non-lethal. This was definitely a category which even as a kid I took the most issue to, because it's just so stupid. So I had a question here. I mean, we've kind of already answered about what the kill counts for SWAT and GSG 9. We don't really know. But they talk a lot about this because obviously these are the non-lethals. The sting ball grenade, which is a GSG 9 non-lethal, stats are that is a 50 feet radius. That's 5 inches long, 10 ounce weight, and it has 180 rubber pellets. So anything interesting on this weapon?
I couldn't find much information on these, honestly, besides defense sites.
You can order. Yeah, you can order them.
You can
online.
order online, but you do have to have. You can't go out and just buy them. You have to have a law enforcement account that you like sign into. Could not confirm if they use these. I honestly think just like a standard flashbang or smoke grenade might make more sense, but you know, I'm sure there's a scenario for these.
Yo, if anybody's got a law enforcement account I can use, drop it in the chat. Yeah. it's like when you're asking, like, yo, if you got a browser's account, share it.
Yeah, but username and password, where you went to high school, just to avoid any sort of
Social Security.
This is just a weird category for this show because this brings back up the debate: is the inclusion of non-lethal weapons counterintuitive towards a show where people are trying to kill each other in the simulation?
It's them redeeming themselves for like, oh, these are police officers and counter-terror.
Yeah.
So like, well, sometimes they use non-lethal force,
I get
so
that
let's put
it
a
could,
category.
I get that it could be like an additive to a kill. Like, we'll see that in the actual sim.
I think there's a few things that drove me crazy about these this category. I would say the biggest thing, though, is that don't both of these guys carry both of these? Like, don't GSG 9 have tasers, and don't SWAT use sting ball grenades?
Yeah.
Well, aren't flashbangs a lot more common than sting ball grenades?
Yeah.
Like,
I've never seen like sting ball grenades. The only one I've heard of, if you've watched Jackass 2, I think it is.
Brendan goes, I wonder if Lucas is going to bring up
I always
the
reference
Jackass sting ball,
where they make mines that shoot these balls out, and they that protect like U.S. embassies and stuff, and they shoot Johnny Knoxville and Bam and them with it, and like cover them in welts, and it does a pretty good job at disorienting them. But don't forget when Jeff picks up one of these balls and says, if a man gets hit in the testicle, he'd go down.
If you took one of these in the eyeball or a testicle, you could take a man down.
Yeah, he immediately thinks of what it would do if it hit you in the nuts. Like, you think he does that with every weapon?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you get hit in the eye or the testicle, it's good putting a man down.
I mean, he's
Remington
not wrong,
700, I wouldn't get a shot in the testicle with that.
And he's like, think I can get an accurate shot in my dick with a taser? Yeah, so the test, not much to say. They just throw it and check out the the impact.
The sting ball grenade test is so underwhelming. They do it like outside. They don't, which I get not doing it indoors, but like make a little room to throw it into. It's so weird that they do it in like this big open space, and then they're like, well, it hit one thing here and another thing here, and it's so underwhelming that like the hosts start shitting on it, and then Damien gets like really pissed, and he's like, well, if you don't think it's that great, Max, why don't you stand here and we'll throw another one or something.
And then Max was like, oh, this is the valid weapon. Like, he like maxed out immediately.
And also, Max, if you don't think that this is powerful enough, you might as well stand here next time. We'll see how powerful it is.
It's a less lethal weapon, and I think it delivers exactly what it's promised.
Max is like, dude, I am improving. I want to go home. Like,
yeah, he's like, well, we don't really test on live targets. And then Jeff whispers like, oh, shit.
Yeah, there's one coming up. Yeah, I mean, this weapon, I'm sure, is useful in some scenario. I don't think there's any cool way with, like, Hollywood magic where you're going to make this weapon look all badass on, like, I mean, it's just some rubber balls that hit you, and they hurt.
Yeah. So moving on to Taser Shockwave stats, or it has a 25 feet range, I believe. That's the stat.
How far you can throw, I guess. Yeah.
3 feet, like, length. Is that what that is? I shouldn't write down the units. I think that's only I would make.
Yeah, so it's the 3 feet is the actual like size of the dimensions of the Shockwave.
Yeah, and it's 13.6 pounds, has 18 cartridges. And I was gonna ask, has anyone here ever been tased?
Yes.
You want to describe your experience?
I got OC sprayed, which is a more intense version of pepper spray, and tased with the little 2-prong gun that they use on the show.
This was when you were in Marine basic training, right?
Not basic training. It was for further training down the road for like PMO.
Which, by the way, it's Veterans Day. I wished you a happy, when we're recording this, I wished you a happy Veterans Day earlier. And for any of our veteran viewers, I hope you had a good Veterans Day from the Xenu boys.
Yeah, happy Veterans Day, everyone. Go get your free meal. I got my Buffalo Wild Wings today.
Now, you were saying you got tased?
Yes, OC sprayed and then tased. The OSP spray was like 10 times worse, I will say. The Tase, the ones that they use, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 8 seconds. And, you know, they go taser, taser, taser. They have 2 people hold your arms up like they do on the show.
Yeah.
And those, you don't feel the prongs hit your back at all. And all it is just every muscle in your body locks up and you like inadvertently go. And like all you can think of is like nothing and everything at the same time for about 8 seconds. They lower you to the floor. And then after like the 8 seconds, that seems like a minute or like an eternity pretty much. You know, everything just kind of lets go. But then you're like, it's like instant recovery kind of in a way. Like you can get up after. I mean, they usually come out, they check your heart rate and, you know, they check your blood pressure when you're in training.
And I guess the whole point is the prongs stay in you. So if you start to get back up, they
again.
can shock you again.
Yeah, because once those things, actually the worst part of it almost was taking those things out because they have a little reverse hook on them.
Yeah, dude, they look nasty. Dorian's like pulling them out of this guy's back with like, he's got like tweezers and shit, and he's like, all right, you just push down in. It was one of the few moments where they actually needed Dr. Dorian, and like someone else couldn't do his job on there because of actual medical work.
Do they test like the actual taser or the shockwave, or is it just like a taser gun?
So they shoot they shoot the shockwave at 5 targets into like 5 mannequins, and then they test a single taser on like some guy that got to volunteer. His name's, I wrote, what did I write here? I put down, they tested against some random guy named Tim, and then a random guy, named Rick hits him with a taser. We get the iconic Jeff DeMolin line.
On 3, 2, 1, tase him, bro!
1, 2, 3, tase him, bro!
Doesn't sound sick there.
The whole reason they end up testing a single taser, because the taser shockwave is what's marketed, and that's what's put as the SWAT's weapon. And they set it down, and they bring up the obvious point that we've actually seen be relevant a couple times on this show, that one of these weapons is something you can carry around with you.
That's my biggest argument with this
and
test.
The other one is one you have to set up in advance, and you have to lay basically as a trap. And because of that, Max does, this is the first time he like acknowledges it. The master and commander, Max Geiger, is like, these different philosophies of these weapons is going to affect how they work in the sim. And that's what prompts the SWAT guys to say, well, we still have the little one. You want to test that? And so I wondered, are the SWAT getting...
That's 2 separate weapons.
Are they getting both of these? Like, are they getting both a taser shockwave and a little taser on the belt? Because I think the GSG-9 should get something on their belt then. You know?
Or why don't they
get
like
trap
beanbag shot for their shotgun or something?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
One of the SWAT guys says something like, oh, our guys are incapacitated. Yours are just scared and running. It's like,
Right.
okay, dude, get in the middle of that sting ball grenade.
Right,
But,
yeah.
I mean, my biggest problem, even as a kid, this pissed me off. Like, I remember being like, I don't get it. To counter the taser shockwave, if you were like a mob, like they're showing the show, just have one person advance. Yeah, and then like they launch it for that one guy, and everyone else just walks up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, right.
you could just totally counter it, and that's why you don't really. I've never seen these in real life.
I have never have either. I wanted to remark on that. I've never seen
shockwave things.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the practical, like, where do you set that up in a counter-terrorism situation where like you're waiting there with your button?
And they said they use it for riot control. That's what they say on Deadliest Warrior. And I am picturing. Well, I'm picturing. You set up a do not cross line, and you set up this taser shockwave, and there's how big is this riot? Because if it is a riot of hundreds of people and you have to be 10 feet away with a little trigger to hit the taser shockwave, you might get 5 people with the taser shockwave, but then you are going to get overrun. You better start driving after that. It's like,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is I wouldn't want to be the guy that's left behind to hit the button on.
Here's something they don't address on this also, and you actually see it in the simulation. In order for a taser to work, those prongs have to enter your skin. The GSG-9 is head to toe.
Yes,
in armor.
in Kevlar.
They bring that up on the aftermath.
Okay, yeah, because even on the thing where in the sim where the guy gets shocked, which I'll cover here, those prongs are just like stuck on his vest.
Yeah,
that would not work.
And that's why when they test it, they do it on a shirtless guy.
Well, they say in the aftermath that it would work actually if it's stuck in the Kevlar.
If it hit Kevlar.
It actually is still going to shock them, and I think we tested that in the studio. Jeff went over it. You still have the arcing of the probes. It doesn't necessarily have to go into your skin. It could hit your clothing here, in your leg here, and not necessarily have to be in the skin, and you're still going to have the electricity going through those two probes. So if somebody's covered with body armor, they're probably still going to get shocked.
I highly doubt that because it's not going into your body. You're like getting shocked outside of your body and not like in it.
You're doubting the Deadliest Warrior aftermath.
Right, I am. I'm gonna Google.
Later on, Jeff says that because this thing ball doesn't get the edge because it's omnidirectional, which the Taser shockwave is precise. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I have a big issue with them giving the edge to the shockwave itself. If it was the Taser versus like the handheld version versus the grenade, I would have like less of an argument. But since they're presenting it as the stationary shockwave with like the little 10-foot cord on it with the button versus something you can carry multiple of, that is you can toss in rooms and stuff, I absolutely think the Sting Ball should get the edge over the shockwave.
Yeah, I just want to say, doing again quick on the fly research here. You guys can do more at home. It's looking like Kevlar will stop a Taser.
It actually is still going to shock them.
That's what I do not remember
Taser,
the training.
If Taser
100%.
prongs hit Kevlar padding, it will stop it. And
When
in
I
fact, a lot of them have a layer that's specifically designed to hit an electric current and stop it. So
they're probably still going to get shocked.
When I went through my training, I didn't want to say it a minute ago and sound stupid, but now that you've like backed it up slightly, they said because the reason you get the Taser training is so you can carry one on like police, military when you get assigned to that.
Yeah.
Everyone has to for like a little bit usually. They tell you that it'll go through like a t-shirt, but even if someone's wearing a hoodie, there's a chance that it might not.
I could see it not going through like a Carhartt jacket.
Yeah.
Even. Like the way it's made, like it might catch on your jacket, but then I can't imagine you getting shocked on the outside is going to be as devastating as getting those prongs sunk into you and then like feeling the full charge.
Yeah.
Here's me.
Yeah.
That is going to be the 10,000 subscriber special where we tase Matt.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to tase you for the...
No.
Yeah, I guess for the edge, I think the Sting Ball was done dirty, and the fact that neither of them get any kills leaves a lot of question marks as to like how these are deployed in the sim. The Taser Shockwave, pound for pound, is a lot more devastating, but it's so unwieldy. Like, you're carrying around this 13.5-pound thing, and you have to set it up and be like, what? It's so stupid when they use it in the reenactment. Like, he sets it up, and then he's sitting like in the next room watching, and then he clicks the little button, and it gets the guy, and it's like, I just think both of them are non-lethal. Yeah, right.
Yeah, technically the Sting Ball contributes to 1 kill in the sim, and the Taser Shockwave contributes to 0
because the
kills.
guy doesn't like charge in and shoot him afterward. So, well, is what it is.
Yeah. So we're moving on to close range. GSG-9 I even thought about this, an American gun.
Yep.
Remington 870. Learn more and more as the episodes go on. 50-yard range, 12-gauge, solid bronze, 8-round mag, pump action. So
insert Barry Jacobson. This is 12-gauge solid bronze.
Yes. So, why do you guys think that Germany is using an American gun? Just for its usefulness, or?
I did fact check this. The GSG, in fact, do use this 870. Pretty much every country around the world has 870s. It's a very, very popular shotgun for military, law enforcement, hunting, home defense.
It's probably the most prevalent and popular shotgun ever made.
Close with
probably.
the Mossberg 500.
Yeah,
like close behind. I own one. It's been in service since 1950, literally all over the world. It costs only like $300 a unit, so it's not expensive at all. The 11 million plus exist. Yeah, and there's pretty much a variant of it for every situation. There's like short ones, long ones, shorter ones, longer ones.
Shorter ones in Lucas's case.
You've seen one before. You've seen one shoot before. They're everywhere.
They're in movies
Brendan,
a lot.
what siege operator has the Remington?
The GSG-9.
Yeah, GSG-9.
And ask yourself which siege operator, Rainbow Six Siege, which siege operator has the G36? Ash, the FBI SWAT. Tom Clancy. You know what? This is my message to Tom Clancy, because I know you yourself are not dead and watching this right now. You're looking down on us from heaven. Tom Clancy, you fucked up in your video game. You gave the SWAT a G36, and you gave the GSG-9 the 870. What the fuck?
How do you think he made all the games by himself?
He's just in the studio grinding.
Yeah.
He's got this. Tom Clancy's got the Sigma male grind set.
He designs the game, makes the score, does the.
And he's like, every game he's designing, he's like, and damn it, they're gonna have a 6.8 millimeter gun in this game.
Tom, you know, they made a video game with your name on it. Is that Nintendo thing?
Yeah. Imagine like
he died rich though.
Tom Clancy goes to Walmart for the first time and goes into the T section. And he's like, "Oh my god!" So moving on to the Benelli M4 Super 90, range of 40 yards, 12 gauge, 6-round mag, semi-auto. So interesting. The narrator says that the SWAT prefer shells to slugs. Again, pointing out a difference in philosophy.
Yeah,
is that true? Because none of the actual SWAT say it.
No. It's one of those things where Damien, the actor, says, they ask him, which do you prefer? And he says, I prefer slugs because they're more, what's the key word for this episode? Precise. It's German. They're more precise.
It's American, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so Damien, the actor, who may or may not have ever fired a shotgun in real life before today, he looks like he probably has, but he gives his opinion, which is not the opinion of the GSG-9, and then they just say like, well, but the SWAT feel differently, and then they never have a SWAT guy comment on what ammo they use. I imagine for most law enforcement situations, it depends. Like you're either using 12 gauge buckshot.
I saw number 2 or number 4. I think were like the most popular.
Or you're using a slug, but the problem with a slug is that you can get some major over penetration with it. So
I think they wanted a contrast is like what they want, because when you watch the two shotguns firing, they're both firing 12 gauge shells. Both are capable of doing each of those shots, but one you see more of like the slug go in, and then the other one it like spreads a little bit. I mean,
I wouldn't want to get hit with either.
Yeah.
I do want to note that the 870 is kind of like the Remington 700, but for shotguns, where it was like the most popular shotgun ever. And the Benelli M4, this is what the Green Berets should have had. Green Beret versus Spetsnaz. Just going to put that out there. The SWAT do use this shotgun. There's a second shotgun that SWAT teams are known for using. Do you want to guess what that is?
Mossberg.
The Remington 870.
Oh, is it? I thought you were going to say Mossberg 500, so we can get the two people that argue back and forth.
It's important to know. I just thought this was funny. I don't know if it affects these tests all that much, but the SWAT gets like a tactical model. They get like the short barrel with a tactical stock and like a red dot. And the GSG-9 appears to get my grandfather's old turkey hunting gun. It's like all wood, and it's like
28-inch barrel.
The hammer is like, I noticed it has an external hammer. Like when he cocks it back, you can see the hammer on the back go. So I guarantee you that was just someone in productions like had that in their house, and they were like, "Hey, can someone just bring in the 870 for free so we don't have to like get one?" And I bet you that M4 Benelli is one of the SWAT guys. Probably. This marks the return. So they do a speed test where they shoot at 5 glass containers. The Benelli's faster, but it's only by like a second, I noticed.
For being autoloader, it's not that much faster.
They made such a big deal, but like Benelli hits his last target, and then the GSG-9 guy hits his like a second later.
Well, the Benelli, he actually misses one of the shots and then hits 2 with another shot.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did not notice that.
You're talking about when the jars are.
Yes.
Yeah, he actually, if you watch, the Remington 870 goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Benelli goes, I can't remember the exact. It's like 1, 2, miss. And then
3,
he hits
4.
2 of them. Yeah, 3, 4, and then hits the 5th one.
Interesting.
Yeah, when you go back, I just noticed that.
I have to check that out. I did not notice. But what I did notice was the return of the attack bot.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you real quick: are autoloaders really prone to jamming?
I mean, it depends. Like, there's more of a risk for an autoloader, whereas with a pump, the risk of jamming is basically zero.
Yeah.
With a autoloader, like, it's the same with pistols, it's the same with shotguns and rifles. Like, it is superior because you can get more rounds off quicker. With shotguns, I'd say that difference becomes the slimmest of any. Like, it's really noticeable in pistols, it's really noticeable in rifles, you know, having like a bolt action versus a semi-auto. I think with shotguns, because like there's not that many rounds and they all hit very hard, it's harder to notice the difference. Maybe unless like you're a skeet shooter or something like that. Skeet. But no, the Benelli's not like a super. It does not perform that well in the cold. I've seen, which they make mention of operations in the cold where the 870,
like Germany.
Yeah, right. And so I guess just to answer that question, Craig, the probability is probably low for something like an M4 Benelli as long as it's being well maintained. However, the probability for the 870 is like near zero, pretty much. Yeah. Like, as long as you're racking that back and you're not short stroking it.
You can
like,
short stroke it too, and that could jam a pump as well too.
Matt Anderson?
Yeah, right.
There is like big debate in like the shotgun world that like, you know, semi-autos can jam, and it's usually budget semi-autos like the Rock Island Armory, like the $600 semi-autos. But a Benelli is a name brand. They've been around forever. They've pretty much perfected like the semi-auto system on their shotguns. They're
known for being pretty
very,
durable.
very little risk of that.
Yeah, and as for the attack bot test, the only note I have is that at least they're not using a pig. So they've upgraded. But
let's release the attack bot.
Yeah,
we love the attack bot on here. We need to get one.
We're gonna call it the attack bot.
It's
got like a Roomba.
Yeah, the attack bot. I will note Dorian asks for 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, which has sort of been a standard for like the rifles on the episode too, and then the GSG-9 guy empties 3 rounds into the head, which is really funny. The SWAT guy he follows the rules a little bit more, but he ends up firing. I counted he fired 4. I think he does 2 to the chest, 1 to the neck, and then 1 right between the eyes. So neither of them listen to direction.
Is that because he prefers slugs?
Yeah.
Right.
So they give the edge to the Benelli because you know they were never going to let a pump win.
Yes.
There was 0% chance.
Yeah, they love their semi-autos on this show.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because you got to give
I also
it.
Don't.
You got to give it for some reason, and
it's an easy. It's like the get out of jail free. Oh, it's a semi-auto. There are like a lot of people who can fire a shotgun fairly quick. Also, too, I guess could be like a defense, but sure, the semi-auto.
The Sega short.
Yeah. So
Edge Sega 12.
Yes. So yeah, we're at the end, boys. So finally, at the conclusion, we have the reenactment. So Lucas, you want to take it away?
Oh yes.
Enter key.
Yeah, let me hit the
inside the kill box.
Hold on, I shifted down. So we find the SWAT team in their natural environment where they train all the time, you know, pulling up their van in the middle of a random fucking field.
In America, so they can have, they don't have to go in the cold.
Right, yes.
Now, they harp on this entire episode, and you even mentioned it a couple times, that these guys are 5-man teams, 5-5-5. So logically, they do a 4 versus 4 for the sim for some reason. So
save money on stunt actors, you know.
SWAT get out, pull out their binoculars to look at some guys you could probably just see anyway. They're like right there. Oh shit! It's the GSG-9 cutting through the fence to enter the fight. It takes the SWAT guy 10 years to take the Remington 700 off his back, giving the GSG-9 plenty of time to see them.
I also noticed
stand there and then hide.
The other SWAT go away, and the sniper stays on top of the hill. And the way the camera is angled, like he can see the GSG-9, and I'm like, they would be able to see him clear as day against like the horizon, like But none of them are like, hey, look, a SWAT guy.
Well, you know what story beat I was expecting but didn't see is an instance they talk about how every GSG-9 operator is just as trained as the next if one of them goes down. So I was expecting like, oh, well, someone with a Remington sniper shoots GSG-9 and the guy picks it up and kills their sniper. But that didn't happen.
There is seriously like 10 minutes where both teams are just kind of standing there, like looking at each other in the beginning of this sim.
One of the SWAT guys sets up a taser shockwave with camo netting.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, one of the SWAT guys runs away and he gets that tingly feeling in the back of his head. He just knows that GSG-9, who he assumed as his enemy, is going to come through this specific place, and he sets up his taser shockwave. Meanwhile, the GSG-9 is just still standing there, staring at the guy with the Remington 700, neither of them taking a shot. So, oh shit, the SWAT guy's tingly feeling was right, and he gets a GSG-9 with the taser shockwave. So we're about 15 minutes into the sim at this point. The first shots are fired at some flimsy wood, which somehow stops every bullet. The GSG-9 peels around that wood corner and blasts the SWAT away with his G36, getting the first kill. He goes back to help his buddy with the prongs stuck to his vest, not in the skin, so don't know how he was tased.
Yeah. They're probably still going to get shocked.
And then the SWAT guy finally remembers where the trigger is on the Remington 700 and takes out one of the GSG-9, who is still just like standing there. He maybe goes inside, but he runs right back out. And then he just misses a second. The GSG, remember, they also have a sniper, the PSG-1, and takes it out. Then we get some back and forth, like shotgun warfare in this little warehouse thing. And then the sting ball grenade comes out and is the non-lethal weapon that gets a kill. He throws the sting ball in, and the SWAT's all, and then he blasts the down SWAT guy. He runs outside.
He like comes up and executes him on the ground.
It's he like runs up and goes.
It's like in Transformers Dark of the Moon when Optimus Prime executes Sentinel Prime, and Sentinel Prime's crawling away and he's begging for his life. He's like, "No, Optimus," and Optimus is like, just blows his head off. That's how this was. Like the SWAT guy goes down and the GSG-9 guy's like, puts the fucking barrel of the gun in his mouth and is like, "Say cheese, bitch."
So he celebrates his kill by running outside and dies the corniest death in the entire sim, where he's like, you know, it's like that slow motion where he's just getting.
He gives a hand signal like he's fine. He's like, I'm good, and then immediately gets shot.
So 2v2, boys. Oh shit! No, it ain't. Because the GSG guy blows the SWAT guy away with his sniper. And then the Remington guy immediately blows his head away with the Remington, leaving a 1v1. So the GSG-9 guy sneaks up to the SWAT van to make his final attack and win the fight. But oh shit, the SWAT guy was hiding at the back of that random Dodge Durango and blows the GSG-9 guy away. Cue the heroic goggle removing shot.
Yeah, the GSG-9. I'm so shocked he didn't salute.
Yeah,
like he kills the SWAT guy. He kills the GSG-9 and then turns around and like does a hero pose.
Yeah, he'd cue the heroic
I was
shot.
waiting for him to lift the goggles and be like, do
America.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. SWAT win. USA.
Yeah, what they actually mentioned that in the aftermath is the preference to America, but
the fact that no United States guy is going to lose after Green Beret spent
stats. We'll get to that.
Yeah, the sim was pretty straightforward on this one. It was just a little boring in the beginning, honestly. I tried to spice it up, but it's just a little. It's like nothing happens for like the first half, and the second half is just a bunch of people shooting each other real quickly.
So the other note I want to say about the reenactment is the GSG-9 look like Martians.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gigantic helmet.
Yeah. So for kills, SWAT, Taser obviously gets 0. Remington gets 271. PSD gets 227. Benelli M4 is 80 with a total of 578. GSG-9, Sting Ball gets 0. PSG gets 305. Interesting.
That 205.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. 205. G36, 136, and which is kind of funny. Almost like they're made up.
Oh yeah, almost like it's made up. Yeah.
Seemed also really low.
Yes.
870 gets 81 for a total of 422 kills. Before I ask you guys what you think about these kill counts, Max, I think he just says something like he expected GSG-9 to win, but he attributes the SWAT win to good old-fashioned American know-how and stick-to-itiveness, which is probably the worst thing that anyone has said in this show.
A large part of this was due to the gear that we're packing. Put their weapons in the hands of the GSG-9, maybe it would have been a different story. But I think there's something to be said for good old-fashioned American know-how and stick-to-itiveness.
I typed in this quote into my computer, and I was like, how do you spell stick-to-itiveness?
Yeah, my Google Docs was not accepting.
Yeah, he's like, the SWAT was packing superior gear, and they had that good old-fashioned American know-how and stick-to-itiveness. What in the fuck does that mean?
Did they not get a better take? Was that the only one that
did? Right. What does that mean? And then Dorian says he thinks he agrees the SWAT would win because they kill more people on a daily basis than the GSG-9.
Which actually they sort of touch on in the aftermath.
He says they have more experience, but we know what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, America's bigger. There's more SWAT teams, and Germany's smaller.
Sure. So for the actual results, I guess I just wanted, the only thing that's of note is the show must have received some money from Remington, because neither of their guns get the edge, but they both get more kills in the sim. Like the R700 does not get the edge against the PSG-1, but it outscores it by 66 kills. And then Benelli gets the edge over the 870, but the 870 gets one more kill. It's like someone messed it up when they were like putting it in, like when they were making up these numbers. And like one guy didn't write he wrote 81 on the wrong side, and then he had already done the math, and he's like, damn it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to hit backspace twice, so that's too much work.
So those are two really big anomalies. I'd like to see the explanation on how the Remington 700 gets more kills than the PSG-1.
Someone commented in one of our videos, it might have been Shino or someone, it said that the GSG-9 gets ripped off on this one, and after seeing these results, I completely agree. The G36 is extremely low over, and the PSG is the semi-auto firing the same round from a similar rifle, but it can fire faster. It seemed like it's shockingly low.
It's weird. It's weird that the kill counts are so low like that, because the way they pass this off is like the GSG-9 have superior training, but that the SWAT have more experience. But you wonder what stats got put into the computer. And I just I guess the episode's not that exciting, so it hasn't drove me crazy throughout the years, but I think based on what we're shown, how in this computer simulation, which may or may not be real, how does a Remington 700 get more kills than the PSG-1 based on what we see? Because from what we see, they're pretty much even.
Yeah.
And then how do you square the circle? How does the 870 get one more kill than the Benelli when in the past, Sega 12 versus Mossberg 590
obliterated.
The Sega scored like over twice as many kills.
Yeah.
So like, how do you square that circle? And then the assault rifle, 91 kill difference. I mean, it seems to me like that should be the most even out of everything, and it's
unless they
the
entered
biggest
in
difference.
with that bigger round, just like some absurd damage stat or something into this.
Yeah,
but it's
I guess
that is like the big red flag to me. Is how low that is.
Yeah, it creates like a bigger wound cavity, but I just don't know how much to the scenario the Deadliest Warrior is showing. Interesting to note, they have both these. This is the first Warriors were shown wearing like modern body armor, like Kevlar, and they never do a test. They never shoot these rounds into like bulletproof vests or test out the GSG-9's ridiculous helmet.
Yeah.
I'm sure they wear the giant thing like that because it offers a lot of protection.
Looks
probably.
like the Spaceball helmet.
Yeah, it probably offers a lot of protection, or else why would you wear that? Maybe
we look how it looks.
Maybe it's to guarantee that the agents are never getting laid.
Yeah.
But
there was also on this episode, there is no X Factor.
Oh,
It did not incorporate an X
what
Factor.
the hell?
Yeah.
I really didn't think of it.
You kind of like you forget about it because we're not used to X Factors yet. But
Yeah.
they bring it in for the Back for Blood, and then there's just no X
I'm
Factor
really
in
glad
this
you
one.
brought that up.
Yeah.
I did not catch that. My last thing I wanted to say, I think the gear selection in this episode's a bit goofy. You could probably swap in different weapons for both these guys. You could probably switch around their gear sets and it would make sense. and that SWAT is a far broader term than GSG-9. I have to assume, based on what they're showing us, that they are talking about the LAPD SWAT specifically, because I just can't help but think of like some, most urban centers have a SWAT team, but like you have these highly trained like commandos in the GSG-9, and they're taking on like just a cop, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it kind of seems like a mismatch, but I guess we're supposed to assume that these are like the cream of the crop SWAT guys. And I just thought that was a little interesting that they never really clear that up. They just leave it as broad as possible. And I bet you that's so that audience members watching will be like, I'm a cop, or I know a cop. I want the SWAT to win. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to.
Whereas no one in America knows a GSG-9 agent, or it's a lot less.
Loop back around to what I said, like towards the very beginning of this episode, where I think this is just like a bad episode, though, because on paper these are two people where if, like, ideally if they don't kill people, that's a good day for like their job description is to not kill people only if necessary in the line of work. So I do not think these are two like good fit for the show.
Right.
For a show that's literally just about killing people.
Right. I'm going to get into the aftermath now. So basically I'm going to rapid fire these moments, and these aren't all the moments in the aftermath, but we'll just kind of go over them. And we've mentioned a lot of these already throughout the episode. So
the deadliest warrior.
Yeah. So Steve Gordon says that police don't train. Like, he was surprised with the reactionary targets that they had. And he says that they don't train with targets with blood and guts, which is
obviously,
almost like they're not trained to look at their suspects as real people. He was like, wow, it was really eye-opening. It's like, yeah, I bet it is. So Max, someone asked him about, like, I think the autoloader. Max says that they factor in the chance of guns jamming into the sim, and every fight gets a clean gun, which I don't believe that for a second. The sim is that detailed.
Yeah. I've said before, and I'll say it again, they test like reliability and mention on this show. 100% there is nothing in the sim that does that. You remember when the blunderbuss they said was like the least reliable gun they've ever tested, but it still got like 350 kills.
Fake test.
That it's a fake test to show the reliability thing, and I guarantee you, if there is a sim, there's no like factor in there that Max puts in, like, 1 out of every 100 times this is gonna jam, because it would be so infinitesimally small, like,
boots up his History Channel video game.
Someone asks about, they're like, how does the SWAT get the M6, and why does the SWAT end up with a better gun than the U.S. military?
Right.
And Steve Gordon is like, oh, I'm surprised how thoughtful the question is. And I'm like, obviously you have no idea who you're dealing with. Like, even Carrie Allen's like, yeah, these people are like mean business.
These people are psychos.
So that was kind of funny. A viewer brings up the point of armor, which we kind of covered, and why it wasn't tested, which is a great point. And Max is kind of like, well, they're kind of like the same armor.
We forgot.
Right? So Kevlar, which is specifically to protect against firearms, is not. I guess all these guys are unarmored. So, or the test me nothing, which is also like.
Well, it's like they brought up body armor in this one, and they don't usually. And the reason they don't usually is because they said, like, well, there's no body armor in the other ones because they don't want to have to do 2 tests for everything. And so that's how it was for this, but they just figured they'd mention body armor at the top to appease people, I guess. Like, they're wearing Kevlar. Yeah. But we're not going to test it.
Kevlar that's designed to stop up to a 7.62.
Right.
Yeah. The viewer asked what we talked about with the Taser Shockwave, how if it would go through Kevlar. Steve alleges that it would. We covered that.
Why not?
Steve says that the LAPD was modeled after GSG-9, which is a police force modeling themselves after a counterterrorism group, which I think they have 2 different workloads, but that's just me.
Wait, they said SWAT was modeled after GSG-9?
Yeah.
What year did you say SWAT was founded?
It's hard to determine. It's not like GSG-9 where it's one single unit.
Yeah.
So we know, like,
that was 72.
We know the
GSG-9.
exact day that they were conceived. The SWAT was like this idea that got tossed around in different states and local areas. It originally started as something like, we need a fast action force to stop bank robbers. And then as different things went on, like, you're just seeing the specialization and militarization of the police force, basically, into these special SWAT units. And that's why I mentioned, like, they really started coming into their own in the riots of the 60s. What they're probably talking about is when they got into, like, the 1980s war on drugs. And today in the war on terror, SWAT have to train and counterterrorism units in case there's, like, a terrorist attack on domestic soil. So that's probably what he's talking about. But yeah, the SWAT, like, the idea of the SWAT predates the idea of the GSG-9.
Yeah, so they say that, I mean, I think it's a little less literal than what he actually says. And finally, a viewer says that the show was biased for America, which...
He's right.
Yeah, and...
It's an American show, yeah.
Yeah, the one GSG-9 who's not Damien, I forget his name, is the other host on the Aftermath. And he's like, if this show was in Germany, GSG-9 would win every time. And it's like, yeah. And Max actually mentions, he's like, if you think we're biased, I want to show you the mountain of hate mail I got for Green Beret for Spetsnaz.
Which, okay. He does have a point. They always use that. They always bring that up as their shield every time. That, like, whoa, you should see how Green Beret Spetsnaz. It's like, yeah, well, because of that. Because of the reaction they got from that episode, that's why they probably rig it going forward.
Wins.
Because they woke up and realized, 99% of our audience is American. The American losing gets us nothing on this show except, like, pushback and hate. I wish they had a little more balls, because those episodes are kind of exciting when the bad guy wins, against the American. But the other thing I want to say about that is hate mail. Where can I send mail to Max Geiger? I don't even want to send hate mail, but, like, he's saying mountains of hate mail. Is he talking about just, like, getting emails or something? I want to send him a letter that's like, hey, Max, come on my podcast with me and my friends.
Dear Max, your show is stupid.
Yeah.
Hey.
Send.
What the fuck? The Green Berets lost.
So did the Mafia. Mafia weren't even in Back for Blood.
Yeah. Hey, forget about it.
Yeah. So we are at the end of our journey here, and we're going to get into conclusions. Lucas, you want to start first?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it already. I just think this is, like, a bad matchup in general. I think I do agree with it, and I didn't until this morning when I rewatched it. I agree that the GSG-9 kind of got ripped off a little bit on this one. I think this should have been pretty much like an even matchup, but at the end of the day, this is definitely not up there with my favorite episodes, just the nature of this episode.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess my final thoughts are, this has the makings of a great episode in that it's got good tests, it's got a lot of different kinds of guns. If I could go back and just give my little armchair generaling here, I think the SWAT is what ruins it, because the SWAT is not a specific thing. There's different SWAT departments all over the country, all over the United States. I would have liked to see, when you have Green Beret versus Spetsnaz, even that is still kind of broad, but it narrows it down. Like, Navy SEAL is like an idea. Like, you can look at when that was conceived in the training. SWAT is it's like the difference between, like, cops and SWAT, or, like, they go through a certain training regimen, but it's like, which SWAT?
Yeah, make it like LAPD SWAT or something, who is probably, someone who sees, given, maybe, a SWAT team in the middle of nowhere, and the LAPD SWAT. LAPD SWAT probably has more experience in training.
I just can't help but think they should have made this less about law enforcement and more about counterterrorism, and done, like, GSG-9 versus some other counter-terrorist group. I think would have been cool. The SWAT just kind of takes me out of it a little bit, because I think I'm like the Hank from Breaking Bad, is like in here. I don't know. So yeah, I would agree. It ends up being kind of an underwhelming and forgettable episode, despite having some cool, like, tests in it, I think.
Yeah. Definitely has some of the most, like, watchable, interesting test.
Yeah. And it doesn't upset me, like the results don't upset me, but I know there are people that are pissed because they think the GSG-9 are like better than and that the SWAT won because they're Americans, which is probably true.
I think the results should have been 50. I was kind of annoyed how low some of the GSG-9 weapons were rewatching this, where I think it should be more almost like 50-50-ish in one person. You know, it should be like a 510 to 490 result.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my thesis that I found watching this episode is obviously this was made in a different time. I will say that when I was trying to do some preliminary research about the GSG-9 and SWAT, I was curious how many people they've killed, and I just searched SWAT deaths or SWAT kills, and like I'm not kidding, like dozens of articles about SWAT kills 22-year-old resident of LA. SWAT kills someone having a mental episode. SWAT kills a 7-year-old girl. Right. So my only thing I'll leave with is, there's this idea that this matchup is to prove who's better. Like not who's better trained or who's like smarter or whatever, but this is like who's better.
Who is deadliest?
Well, so I mean,
it's the SWAT.
If our police force is really considered the deadliest warrior, is that really something to brag about? So with that,
good point. Yeah,
I think that is all we got time for. So stick around for next episode. And it's going to be what, Attila the Hun versus
Attila the Hun versus Alexander the Great. The real Shino is in the comments section right now, just like
salivating,
burning for this episode.
This is the one he kept. Wasn't there like an episode countdown? He was like, only 4 more episodes until this.
The real Shino shared us some notes on that episode. So
right,
thank you, Shino. Yeah. We are going to feature that next week when we do the episode. So
the Shino breakdown,
or a couple weeks from now when we do the episode. So
So
very exciting.
If anyone else has notes about upcoming episodes too, send it over to znewgames1@gmail.com. We'll feature it on the show if it's before that episode.
Yeah, check out our hot trending Craig Observes
Planet Zoo
animal family of lions at Planet Zoo.
If you ever wondered again why that's one of our top videos, check out a pretty good podcast for this week.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yo, stay deadly.
Stay deadly.